When it comes to the Canon C70 and the Red Komodo, these are probably two of the top tier cameras that most people are looking at right now. Now, obviously these two cameras are really nothing alike. I mean, the 4K C70 at up to 120 frames per second, that is fantastic, and there's a certain buyer for that camera. The same way that with the Komodo shooting 6K RAW, there is a certain buyer for that camera. But I've noticed that a lot of people, especially you guys here, have been commenting and messaging me, letting me know that you're kind of on the fence as far as which way to go. And so what I decided to do with this video is I want to tell you guys about my experience owning both of these cameras, working with both of these cameras over the last couple months, and tell you guys kind of really what I think about each one and why you might find one more useful than the other. What's good, creative fam? Brandon Washington here, and in today's video, we are taking a look at these two cameras, and I'm hoping that by the end of this video, I'm gonna help you guys know which one you should pull the trigger on. Now, you may very well be like me. Both cameras might actually be great for you, and you might decide that, you know what? I'm gonna try to pick up both of these cameras because they both are definitely leaders in their field. But what I want you to do before we even get started is do a slight little calibration on yourself. Ask yourself these two main questions. One, what am I currently filming? Whether that's documentary work, music videos, commercial work, YouTube content, I mean, you name it. Maybe you're not shooting anything and you're just kind of getting started. You ask yourself, what am I currently shooting? And now ask yourself this second question. What do I plan on shooting in the future? See, if you know the answer to these two questions, it's really gonna help you to kind of calibrate yourself when it comes to the feature sets of each of these cameras. Now, I know all of you guys are probably wondering, Brandon, which one is your favorite? Do you like the Komodo more? Do you like the C70 more? And the honest question is, it depends. Now, I know that's not your favorite answer. I know that answer sucks. It depends on what type of shooter you are, and it also depends on where you see yourself going in your future. The Red Komodo is a 6K Super 35mm cinema camera. Now, this camera is an amazing package. The fact that this thing can shoot Red R3D RAW in 6K with the global shutter, all internally to CFast cards, makes this a very high-end but well-priced Red camera. Now, if you are looking to compare this camera to other cinema cameras, you kind of have to start by looking at the existing Red cameras. See, what makes this camera so special is how well it works with all of Red's existing cameras. The whole purpose of this camera was actually to be like a crash cam, like a glorified GoPro. But what a lot of filmmakers, myself included, realized was that this was actually a great starter camera for getting into the Red ecosystem. Now, jumping into the Red ecosystem typically is not an easy feat. On top of that, you also are jumping into it for some pretty, substantial reasons. The first being that R3D RAW. R3D RAW is what allows you to have the most latitude in your editing workflow when working with Red cameras. By being able to shoot your footage in RAW, you can change things like your white balance, your ISO, your tint, in order to ensure that your image looks great on post-production, just in case you maybe didn't quite get everything right in camera up front. This is one of those big things that the C70 just, quite frankly, doesn't have. See, when you look at the C70, it is an amazing 4K up to 120 frames per second shooting camera, but it doesn't have any RAW outputs. On top of that, this camera does shoot in a dual gain ISO situation where I don't really understand all the science. You're probably gonna have to go look at Gerald Undone's video on this, but basically what this camera allows you to do is it records at two different ISOs at the same time, bakes it into one image in order to give you amazing dynamic range. Now, when you look at these two cameras side by side, the dynamic range is very compatible. I do see that I get a few more stops with the Red Komodo, which does allow it to edge out in that dynamic range test, but I also see, because we are shooting to a 6K sensor, that you are gonna get a slightly sharper and more detailed image coming out of that Komodo. Now, yes, the Komodo, in my opinion, does win when it comes to image quality and sensor data and all of that because of all those benefits that I already talked about, but that's not really where the C70 tries to take it its stance. See, the C70 tries to take its stance by giving you everything you would need to out-rig your camera with, but puts it inside of the camera, so that way you don't need a rig at all. So when working with the Komodo, you really do have to have a rig for this thing. Whether that's just something simple like the outrigger handle, maybe a monitor, a couple batteries on the back, and kind of go that route, you might be okay. But what happens when you get outside and it's too bright for you to be able to adjust your settings? Well, then you're gonna need a matte box, and that includes ND filters. On top of that, you're also gonna need a way to get good audio into this thing. Now, yes, the Komodo does have a 3.5mm mic jack. The Komodo is designed to be used in a cinema workflow. So this means that everything about this camera is designed to have extra pieces added onto it, which ultimately means that you're gonna be spending more money. You're gonna be taking this small cube and turning it into a much bigger setup if you plan on using it as your A camera. Now, this compared to the C70, it's not even really close. I mean, the C70 has built-in ND filters, it has built-in mini XLR ports, it has built-in dual camera slots, which, I mean, I understand that most cinema cameras don't have that, and I'm not expecting the Komodo to have it, but it is definitely a nice bonus point for the C70 to have that. It also has a built-in swivel LCD screen, so that way you really don't feel like you need to add an external monitor to it. And on top of that, it has their professional BP batteries, which on this camera, I can easily shoot for 3+ hours and not have to worry about this battery dying. So just from those 2 points that we're breaking down so far, we can already see how these two cameras are completely different. I mean, for one, with the Red Komodo, you've got something that is designed for the world of cinema. It's designed for building it out. It's designed for moving slower. I mean, there are certain things that with the Komodo, you're just gonna have to deal with, such as longer boot times. Depending on where you move the camera and how you set it up, you might have to black shade it in order to make sure that you're getting the most dynamic range and the cleanest sensor readout you possibly can. Whereas with the C70, it's more so designed for that run and gun filmmaker, whether that's documentaries or the one-man band who just wants to bring out less gear to go along with it. You're getting that out of the C70 where everything is built into it, but at the trade-off of not getting the best sensor you could be getting for the price point. And honestly, that's where the big differentiator comes in for me. When you look at the C70 and you look at the Komodo, what you really have to figure out is, what am I paying for? See, for me, when I look at the Komodo, I am paying for red sensors. Now, you may not think that there's any value in red sensors or having red RAW or the global shutter. That may not be of any value to you, which in that case, if you're comparing these two cameras, then I say C70 all the way. But for those of you guys who are considering the red sensor, what you have to ask yourself is, why do I want the red sensor? Is it because I want to have the most dynamic range? Is it because I want to be able to send out this R3D RAW file to post-production and know that I can have as much grading room as I can possibly get within this price point? Or is it that I want that global shutter because I'm shooting lots of fast moving objects and I don't want to have to deal with any type of shutter lag from my camera sensor? But if you're not looking at those things, maybe you're considering the C70 because it has everything already built into one. Maybe you're a one-man band or you're a documentary type filmmaker and you can't stand having to bring out ND filters, having to worry about audio inputs, having to deal with an extra monitor or tons of extra big V-mount batteries and rails and all those things. Maybe you just need all of your camera built into a nice small package ready to go. I mean, this is the reason why I personally bought both. Over the last couple months, I've been shooting a lot of commercial projects along with a lot of run and gun filmmaking. I mean, I find that for commercial projects, my Komodo works out great. Being able to shoot this camera on sticks, build it out, and knowing that I'm getting the best image quality I possibly can, but also knowing that I will have all the range in post just in case I accidentally maybe mess up on my ISO, or I'm running too quickly on a commercial project and my white balance is off. Knowing that I have the raw data in order to dial that in, especially because I have clients who are paying me for this project and I don't want to take a chance on losing that client because the image isn't as good as it could possibly be. These are the reasons why I think the Komodo are great for commercial projects. That being said, the C70 could still work in that workflow, but if you are looking for something that's more run and gun and that's a little bit easier just to go out and film with, then there's no doubt that the C70 is the camera to go with. I would have to say that the C70 is probably the better camera for most filmmakers. In fact, if you are not even considering the Komodo, there's no reason for you to even look at it, as far as I'm concerned. For those of us who love the idea of shooting red and we understand what we are getting with the Komodo, that is when you should be considering that camera. And I know this isn't probably what you wanted to hear. I know a lot of you guys are probably interested in the Komodo, thinking about going with the Komodo because you see the red on the side of the box. But the truth is, as a professional filmmaker, it is our job to pick the tool that's going to allow us to do our job the best. So let's go back to that calibration at the beginning of this. First of all, what are you currently shooting? If you are shooting documentaries, if you are shooting run and gun work, if you are shooting even commercial projects or music videos, I would say that the C70 definitely fits in that wheelhouse. However, if you are shooting commercial projects or music videos where you will have the time to get this camera dialed in, to work with a small crew, to get this camera on set and get it just the way you need it to be, the Komodo is a fantastic buy and you will get the better image quality out of it by far. But you have to ask yourself, will this work within my current workflow? Am I ready for all the additional purchases that are gonna come along with it? And ultimately, will this be the best tool for my job? At the end of the day, you don't have to buy either one of these cameras. Both of these cameras are easily available for rent right now. And so if you find yourself on the fence, I strongly recommend renting them. Rent them and see what is it like. Get it out on a professional job or get it out on a passion project, some spec work, whatever you want to do. Get these cameras out into the field and really test them. I actually rented both of these cameras before buying them because I wanted to make sure that they were going to actually work in the manner that I needed them to. And that is the most important thing. Make sure that you are picking the tool that's going to help you do the job. Do me a huge favor, leave me some comments down below letting me know which of these two cameras you are leaning to and why. I would really love to know. I actually dropped entire videos on both of these cameras already, so be sure to check those out. I know you guys are going to enjoy them, but thank you guys so much for checking out this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.